The City of Bristol, providing beautiful parks, economic development, and a family-friendly community.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the joint meeting of the Board of Finance and City Council, which is a brief meeting that we hold before our monthly City Council meeting to go over revenue and expenditures of the past month. The first item on our agenda is to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to have members of the joint meeting introduce themselves, starting in chambers first.
Yes, Orlando Kelfi, Board of Finance.
Peter Kelly, City Council.
Greg Hahn, City Council.
Scott Rosado, City Council.
Dave Perleski, City Council.
Brittany Barney, City Council.
Mary Fortier, City Council.
And in the audience, we have Commissioner Marie O'Brien, Commissioner Dave Majkowski, and Commissioner John Mace without microphones. And online, we have Commissioner Ron Burns from the Board of Finance. So we do have a quorum. The first item on the joint meeting agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular joint meeting on July 13th, 2021.
Move to accept.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And before we go to the consent calendar, I will draw your attention to the fact that we had planned on doing a presentation for the City Hall project tonight. We are still in the middle of value engineering as well as working on other components, so we are going to postpone that presentation to a future meeting. Item 3 is the consent calendar. It is items A through N. Are there any items on the consent calendar that any member of the joint meeting would like to pull off for further discussion or questions?
Move to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is to approve the abatement of taxes for festival fun parks in the amount of $69,717.73 per the stipulation of judgment dates, May 20th, 2021.
So moved, or second. So moved is what I'm supposed to be saying. I apologize.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 is to transfer $33,792 from the Equipment Building Sinking Fund Contingency account to the Machine Equipment Lease Buyout account as of June 30th, 2021, in order to pay for the 2021 lease buyout of various equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is to transfer $70,000 from the general fund contingency account to the fire department's operating budget, the hiring initiative.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made and seconded. This is starting the process of the over 16 hires that the fire department's going to make. For those of you who might recall, we sequestered funds and made them available in our general fund so we could pull from that so it wouldn't be part of the fire department's operating budget this year, which would have really inflated that line. We've hired 7 firefighters for the August 26th meeting. 5 will be going to the academy, 2 are already certified. So there are various expenses associated with those 7 new employees coming online, and this is part of it. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7 is to make an additional appropriation of $10,000 within the Coronavirus Recovery Fund funded by the American Rescue Plan funds for the Community Services Department non-reimbursable incidentals.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. So for discussion purposes, this is the first appropriation that has come through from the task force to the Board of Finance and now through the Joint Committee that we have made through the task force. This $10,000 is for incidentals that are associated with people that we are trying to keep housed, incidental expenses in order to keep people working, or anything else for stability purposes. So it's our first allocation. It is a small amount because we're testing the process at this point, and it is going to our Community Services Department, which is located as part of Parks, Recreation, Youth and Recreation, and Community Services. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 is to make an additional appropriation of $4,692,000 within the Capital Projects Fund funded by the State Department of Economic and Community Development Urban Act funds for the Center Square redevelopment project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Your Honor, I do have a question. In the documentation that was provided, it indicates that all those line items are going towards parking garage. I know that initially it was submitted that it would potentially pay for a city green too. Is that still part of the discussion? Is that just how we decided to itemize it for purposes of moving the funds?
I think it's how we are itemizing it. We are still looking to reserve parcel 4 for green space. How we pay for it within this time frame of inflated building costs and the time schedule for getting that parking garage up is probably still something that we're going to need to discuss.
Okay, all right, thank you, sorry.
Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9 is to transfer $25,000 from the general fund contingency account to life insurance.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the monthly revenue and expense report presentation by Controller Diane Waldron.
Good evening, everyone. Have a couple of things just to report. You do have the report through the end of June 30th. Not much different from what we had last month, but I think these numbers are pretty much final. So just to go through a couple of things, the tax revenues did come in at 100% of budget. I think there is one adjustment we have to do for that for accounting purposes. We get to record and adjust for 60-day collections, so that number might change slightly, but for all intents and purposes, we were at 100%. The prior year tax revenues, we did really well. We're over 100%. We're at 107. And then the motor vehicle sup, as we've been reporting, it came in at $1.9 million compared to a budget of $1.4 million. That represents about 87% of the total that was billed, and that's about average for the supplemental motor vehicle. So that's nothing to be concerned about, and that is something that the tax collector continues to collect on, even though that gets transferred to suspense at some point. Building permit fees and the conveyance fees, as you can see, really knocked it out of the park. Building permit revenues at 174% of budget, so $2,097,000 came in on that. Prior year was $1,046,000, so again, it did really well there. Conveyance fees, $1,867,000. That compared to $1,043,000 in the prior year. So that was 226% of budget. So that's where we ended the year there. So that was really did really well. Investment earnings we did not do as well for budget purposes, and we did know that that was going to we were going to achieve lower results than investment income when we put this budget together. So we were actually at 47% of what we had budgeted. So we're at $261,000 compared to a budget of $556,000. Last year at this time we earned $1.2 million, and I was asked by Councilman Kelly to just provide some additional information compared to other communities and how they did. I was able to gather some information on 14 different communities, and it's basically on par with everybody else. I mean, just to give a few numbers, our numbers compared to 2019, we collected 29% of what we collected in 2019 and 23% of what we collected in 2020. The average for the 14 towns was 14%, 12%, and 14.5%. So we actually did a little bit better than the average of the 14 that did respond to me. There were a few outliers. There were a couple that were at 25%. for the current year, and then there were some that were as low as 3%. So it was a little bit all over the place, but I think on average, I think we did better. So I thought that would be good to just share with you all. Police private duty, again, there is surplus there that was generated on what was billed and then what the actual expenses were. So that will help on our revenues. On the expenditure side, we're pretty much done. We have everything in, all the final invoices are in. There are a few accounts that will have some surplus funds, specifically Corporation Counsel and Human Services. Their professional fees, and we will be carrying those over into the new year. And then some other accounts had some funds left over as well, Department of Aging, Police Maintenance, Solid Waste, Fleet Maintenance, our snow removal in Public Works, libraries, parks did have some, again, I think because a lot of programs didn't run last year. So a lot of those available funds will be transferred to other accounts. Some of the accounts that did need transfers was the fire department overtime account, compensated absences. We had a lot of compensated absences that were paid out, particularly for the firemen that went into the drop plan last July. Patrol overtime, and then there were some additional expenses in other city buildings. Like I said, carryovers, I did ask anybody that requested carryovers for into the current year. Those will go to the Board of Finance at their next meeting in 2 weeks. And the total is around $850,000, and it's for justified expenses. A lot of it is the Corporation Counsel fees that when we go through the budget, we know they're going to have some funds left over. We carry those over. So you'll see that list at your next meeting. The ARPA task force is continuing to meet. Just to give you a little bit of an update there, we did interview 2 of the finalists for the RFP this morning, and I think there's 2 more interviews tomorrow. It will be nice to get somebody on board to help with that because the reporting is a little bit arduous, to say the least. It's very overwhelming. We did receive the balance of the FEMA funds for last year. If you remember, there was 25% that they were going to reimburse us, and we did finally receive that. That was about $82,000. So all in all, I think everything is on target. There will also be, in addition to the carryovers, any surplus funds. There will be some surplus funds that will be requested to be set aside in reserve, specifically the Mill Rate Stabilization Reserve Fund. We want to replenish that. Our Equipment Building Sinking Fund, and then we do want to give additional funds back to the Economic Development. We did actually need to replenish his Economic Development Fund. And I don't have final numbers on the Board of Education. I know they have a Finance Subcommittee meeting tomorrow, but I do know that they will have a surplus. I don't know the exact amount, but I know they will be requesting the carryover again like they did last year. So that's really it with really last year. Not much to report on the current year because we're really only a month into it. So if anybody had any specific questions.
Through the chair, Diane, 2 questions, please. One is when you talk about some of the expenditures and the overtime slots, is it identifiable towards COVID or COVID-related issues that cause some of that stuff?
Some of it could be, but we did try to segregate that out because if you remember, we received over $800,000 in the CARES Act money that we had to allocate and use a lot of that. So that might be part of it, but not all of it. I think a lot of it is the turnover, particularly in the fire department. And when I say there are overages, a lot of times there's money left over in regular wages that could be transferred.
I was going to say that because there's
right.
open seats, so some of that was mitigated by the fact that we didn't have full complements.
Right.
The second question is, any of your interviews on the ARPA, those for the management, are they suggesting anything about more guidance, or have you gotten any information about what they're thinking about in terms of municipal guidance for that?
So the 2 that we interviewed today, they do seem to have, both of the firms interviewed did work with other cities and towns with regard to the CARES Act money. So they are a little bit very familiar with what needs to be done. So I think they have the reporting piece of it down. As far as any more guidance, as far as what it could be spent on,
They know
They
what
don't
we
know
know,
it,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
That's okay.
exactly, yep.
Thank you.
I did talk to Congressman Larson's staff on this topic, and they are waiting as well. And he said that as soon as he gets any guidance, including the user guide for the report, that he would be back in touch with us. But they're frustrated as well.
Well, the reporting's a big deal for us.
The
so
report's due
that's
August
helpful.
31st.
Right, the interim report would cover from March 3rd to July 31st, which really, we won't have a lot to report because you just approved the 10,000 tonight. The one thing we want to do, or I want to do, is go back and do the revenue replacement calculation. I know we kind of talked about not doing that, but I think it might be worth going through that calculation and reserving that in the long run. So that's the one piece that I think that we would have to report. They did come out yesterday, the Treasury, with their portal instructions, and that's kind of what I was waiting for, to kind of get in there and to see what they were looking for. So I haven't really had a chance today to get into it, to look and see what's required, but we're getting there. It's little by little.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, so if there's no other business to come before the joint meeting, I will just remind everyone that we are going to be looking at a City Hall presentation at a future meeting for both the Board of Finance and City Council, best suited for joint meeting. We're also going to be looking at a presentation concerning the Northeast Middle School. And I also, sadly, am sharing the news with all of us tonight that Commissioner Nick Jones has resigned from the Board of Finance due to a promotion that he has received with the Manchester Public Schools, and he's going to be unable to continue that commitment. So we will be looking for a new person to serve on the Board of Finance, hopefully in the next month or so they can be up to speed before the budget process begins. But thanks to Nick for the time that he did spend with us. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned, and we are going to start the city council meeting in about 30 seconds. So, got to move.
Have a good night.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to start the August city council meeting. We first are going to ask those who are present with us tonight to stand and join us as we open our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to ask the city council members to introduce themselves, starting on my far right.
Peter Kelly, 2nd District.
Greg Hahn, 1st District.
Scott Rosato, District 1.
Dave Perleski, 2nd District.
Brittany Barney, District 3.
Mary Fortier, District 3.
And I'm Mayor Ellen Zappo-Sassu. Our moment of reflection is twofold tonight. First, we did have an untimely death of a young person from Bristol Eastern High School over the weekend. And I'd like to counterpose that against a homecoming for one of our military members who arrived back in Bristol safely. Many did not, so let us hold those that have given the ultimate sacrifice in our prayers tonight as well. Thank you. The second item on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the regular City Council meeting on July 13th, 2021, and the special City Council meetings that were held on July 6th and July 20th, 2021.
Move to accept?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, or clarifications needed? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our first item under public participation is our monthly nonprofit showcase. And this month, we are featuring the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is going to happen on September 12th at Lake Compounds. And I'd like to invite Alexis, where is she? Oh, there she is, to come forward to make her presentation.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Alexis Isaac. I'm the development manager for the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm currently running the Central Connecticut Walk to End Alzheimer's. Can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, I'm Heather Hitchcock, and I am on the committee for the Walk to End Alzheimer's, and you may also recognize me from Bristol Hospital Senior Behavioral Health.
Yes, and thank you, Scott, for chairing last year. So we have
welcome.
some really wonderful Bristol residents in the room. I'll lower my mask a little bit.
And really close to the microphone so people can hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
So yeah, I just want to bring to the attention of everybody here that we are holding our signature fundraising event for the Alzheimer's Association, the Walk to End Alzheimer's, for the first time ever in Bristol. I grew up in Plainville and all my family is from Bristol, and I always went to the East Hartford Walk. So it's really exciting to be bringing this event to our community. We're going to be following all COVID safety protocols. We're going to be holding it in person September 12th, which is Grandparents' Day. Really perfect timing. We'll have Heidi Boyd from NBC 30 as our MC. She's going to guide us through her personal connection and our really beautiful Promise Garden ceremony. This is the fundraiser that helps us do all of the free support groups that we do. We have a 24/7 helpline that's free to the public, and research and all sorts of support. So there's 80,000 families currently, or there's 80,000 residents of Connecticut who currently have Alzheimer's disease. And so for that, we're asking you to come walk with us and show your support.
I grew up in Burlington, but Bristol was the big city, so I'm very happy to be here as well. I wanted to let you know that 1 in 5 residents in Bristol is over the age of 65. And that is the #1 precursor for Alzheimer's is age. I also wanted to let you know that by participating in WALK, you are supporting research, but you're also supporting your own community. As Alexis mentioned, we do support groups here. We have grants for families who are struggling with caregiving. There's so much in town, in area, in state support that the Alzheimer's Association gives back, and that's different from a lot of other nonprofit organizations. Not that they're bad, I'm just saying that that is something that the association is very proud of. I also wanted to let you know that by supporting the association, we are, whether you support us or not, we're happy to come out to your business. We can talk about having a walk team, which is really what our goal is to go into businesses, not only get their financial support, but share with them the education that we have about Alzheimer's. It's really amazing the number of people who don't know that we exist yet. And so we're willing to come out to your place of business, either help you start a team, or whether you start one or not, bring to you information about the disease, the 10 warning signs, how to communicate with people with Alzheimer's, anything that people in your community are struggling with. And if you can't have a team, one of the things that I always say to everyone is, if you can't walk, donate. If you can't donate, educate. If you can educate, advocate. If you can do 1, 2, 3, or all of the above, we would really appreciate it. So hopefully we'll see you on September 12th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have 2 people for public participation. The first name is Brian Cohen. Leadership Matters at Brass Mill Center in Buckland Hills. Hi, Brian.
Yeah. You guys have been busy. Congratulations on a lot of positive work that you guys have done. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. First off, I have a group called Positive Expression, which is a positive expression through art. I've done it since 1993.
Brian.
93, sorry.
Okay.
Well, it's like right in my face. One of the things that we do is Leadership Matters. And what I did was I reached out to a bunch of state legislators and people in the community, Mayor Ellen, to basically find out your most important leadership skill or trait. Name it in 1 word, and then 2 paragraphs or less. The concept is basically just to have people, specifically children, see the artwork, see the presentation, and hopefully plant some positive seeds. This year we're expanding it to kids, high school kids actually, so we'll have the combination of both legislators and people in the community and students. We have a large display right now at the Brass Mill Center in Waterbury. It's everyone's caricature, and it's teaching right there. That will be up all the way up until next year, December actually, of 2022. And we have the same presentation, a little smaller, at the Buckingham Hills Mall. Both displays are about 200 feet with a bunch of different artists for school students, professionals, and amateurs alike. I just want to say that it was an honor to have you part of that program. Yours was the art of listening and the ability to listen. Mine's to stand alone. I've also been honored as a 2020 Connecticut Art Hero through the Connecticut Office of the Arts. I was one of 9 people selected for 2020. And since fate's a funny thing, I say it all the time. Last March, right when this was announced, COVID hit, production of other filming and stuff got ceased. This May of 2021, the state filmed us, and September 1st, all the art heroes for 2020 and for 2021 are going to be recognized at Infinity Hall, and you're all invited. The last thing I just want to say before I leave is the legacy of Andrew Mclean, which has always been part of the exhibits that I do. Fate is a funny thing. And last March, in 2020, I was at the state capitol about to address whether or not certain nonprofits can be inspected without announcement. Mr. Suchapar was there, and he left and I stayed. There was no confrontation. It's just that fate was a funny thing, because on that date was March 6th, and that was the release date of The Big Lebowski, and I have part of my experience with Bristol under the heading The Big Lebowski. That's just kind of a funny thing. You just can't do the odds. Last December, that guy resigned, retired, went on his way, whatever. When I started this project, The Legacy of Andrew Mclean, I said 2 things were going to happen. The board of the Bristol Boys and Girls Club would receive enough pressure like St. Francis did and remove Michael Suchapar, or he'll run his course. And he ran his course. Unfortunately, when he left in the Bristol Press, his announcement was that he's been a human services man his whole life and would like to continue to contribute to society. I really don't know what to say to this community, this leadership, because that statement in that paper would never have been able to reach that far if anyone on the Bristol City Council, past or present, people who run the Mayor's Cup or the board members of the Bristol Boys and Girls Club had the courage that that young man had back in the beginning of the year when he heard a comment that made him feel uncomfortable at the Bristol Law Enforcement Police Department. And he had the courage to ask and question something in society. That takes a lot of guts. You know, he stood alone for there. I read the reports. I have them with me. You know, it's unfortunate that when people stand up in a situation like that, he said he wanted to have a conversation. But we know in today's society that's not such an easy thing to do. You know, it would have been a cover-up. I mean, you guys had to investigate, you had to do your thing, and you did what you were supposed to do. You know, but the kid felt as if he was hung out to dry. He felt abandoned. And whenever people stand up and they question things, that's where you go. You go on an island by yourself. So the last thing before I want to go, I just want to clear something up about the history of Michael Suchapar.
You know, Brian,
No,
he's
ma'am?
not here
Ma'am?
anymore,
That's fine.
and we don't have anything to do with it.
No, you do. Actually, you do, ma'am. It is because each and every year you go to the Mayor's Cup, you oppose and you promote him. That gentleman's history is a disgrace to the state of Connecticut. 2 places closed because of him. Multiple state and federal investigations went through that guy. People like myself have mandated reporter slips related to the programs that this guy tried to push through, mixing little kids with adults, so on and so forth. Now, any one of you guys could have put pressure on people like this guy, Mr. Rosado, and you not hear from me. The fact is that part of this is my history. My history. I have, on the exact 2-year anniversary of that kid's death, one of my substantiated complaints of abuse and neglect because of what my school supervisor's procedures made people do or go work somewhere else. He comes to Bristol and says he left after helping the hospital recover from the death of Andrew Mclean. That is the press release from the Bristol Boys and Girls Club. That's not even true. And so what you've done is you teach and you encourage people to lie as a leadership skill.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up. It's been 12 minutes.
2 more. The Bristol Boys and Girls Club last year in 2019 lost $358,000. From 2015 to 2019, it lost $1,074,000. In the same time period, from 2015 to 2019, the assets after liabilities dropped $1.9 million. So that for that 5 years, this guy lost basically $3 million, and in 2019 he gets a raise. That's encouraging people to lie. And since none of you guys had the courage to at least step up at any of those times to say, hey, this guy didn't leave Elmcrest after helping him recover. He was fired. And then he went to Lake Grove and did the same thing. It was investigated again. And at the last minute, he comes here with hired without a search. Not leadership on your part. That young man, and no offense to some of you guys that I like.
Brian.
I'm going. But that young man had more courage and more strength to step up and ask a question about racism in our country. And you guys turn around and you promote people who exploitate and take advantage of those who don't usually have a voice. Michael Suchipar should not have stayed as long as he had, and the people who are in front of me and past are responsible for me still standing here talking about it. And thank you for your time. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, what you're saying is not fair,
How's it
particularly to Mr. Rosado,
Okay,
but we're not going to engage now.
Yeah, we're not having
I'll just be
a
on record
discussion.
as saying that.
We'll leave it alone.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you, Brian.
No, I'm going to ask you a question. Please, before I go, I have this right. Please, before I go, explain to me that one question where you just said that it's not fair.
No, we don't.
No, I'll
we
talk
don't-
to you afterwards. That's the way, this is
Yeah,
this
we
is
don't
not
have a
set up for
debate.
that. It's not back and forth.
Will you go on record with me then? If I wait.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I will.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, the next person is, I believe the first name is Thomas. I cannot read the last name. It looks like it begins with the letter B.
Yes, that's me. Hi. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Could you please reintroduce yourself so we have it
Okay,
for the
my
record?
name is Tom Barrow. I live at 498 East Road in Bristol. Been a resident here for over 20 years. And I'm here tonight representing the Interfaith Coalition for the Preservation of Marriage and Innocence. You may have heard that a few weeks ago we held a prayer vigil on the Federal Hill Green. Throughout the vigil, we were verbally attacked by the representatives of the LGBT community. They threw down our signs, yelled and chanted throughout our prayer vigil. One of our speakers was an African-American woman who they tried to shout down by racial slurs. But I'm happy to say we weren't deterred. We prayed our prayers, we spoke what we felt needed to be said. Our response towards them was one of Christian love. We let them know that God loves them and we love them also. In fact, at the end of the prayer vigil, one of them apologized for the others for their rude and hateful behavior. We as a coalition would like to ask the city government if they really know what they are actually supporting by flying the gay flag over our city for the month of June. That banner does not represent a liberation of sexual orientation. That banner now represents a transsexual movement that is out of control, a movement that is destroying the lives of hundreds of thousands of children and young people and confusing and disorienting millions of others. That banner represents state-sanctioned enforcement of early sexualization by teaching gender fluidity to grades K through 12. In their own words, that banner represents the destruction of an oppression of the heterosexual norm, which means the destruction of the nuclear family. In this highly charged political atmosphere, I know how unlikely it is that you will discontinue the practice of flying the gay flag. I understand how you believe that flag represents inclusivity. However, there are thousands of us in Bristol who are excluded by that flag. We believe in the God of the Bible who created marriage and went down on record that marriage is between one man and one woman. We believe in the millions of men and women of God who for over 3 millennia have pointed to the righteous standard of God's holy word regarding sexual behavior of his children on earth. God makes the rules. We don't get to make the rules. We would like to propose that you allow us to raise our flag over the City Hall during the month of September, so we can also be represented. We have come up with just such a flag. This is not a flag representing any kind of pride, but it is representative of straight humility before God. Please consider our proposal and take the time to vote on it. This decision is yours, but please consider how God feels in your decision. Thank you very much for letting us speak.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody
With all
else?
due respect, I'd like to go on the record that I appreciate, I'm allowed to speak my piece. I appreciate you speaking, that's your right to have your opinion. I will not vote on that because it's offensive. I understand you have this idea if you're in your head that what you're asking for is okay, but it's not appropriate. You don't know any of us. You don't know our families. It's a little
Well, I do
insulting.
know God. I do know his standard that's in his word.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so if you make that decision not to vote on it, consider when no one's around and just you and God, consider how that puts you in his standing, because you're disobeying his eternal laws.
Okay, we're not debating public participation. Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry.
Moving on to announcements, I'll start on my far right. Are there any announcements, Councilman Kelly?
Yes, Your Honor, I do. I received an email from Donna Osich, the president of United Way, and she gave some quantification of exactly what transpired with the food distribution sites going back since June. There were 31,505 boxes distributed weighing 1,072,225 pounds, and a total of 391 volunteers provided almost 1,200 hours of their own personal time to do this. And I think it's a good representation of the altruism of Bristol. These were people from varied backgrounds, children, parents. I met one young man who's a student at Kingswood, Oxford, and his mother works in the corporate world. They volunteered. They thought it was important that he was there, giving to others, and the stories go on and on. So a great representation of Bristol, and I think it showed that we deserve to be called the All Heart City. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Hahn, any announcements?
I have no announcements at this time.
Councilman Rosado?
I do, Your Honor. The second annual community conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion was held last Wednesday at Rockwell Park and was well attended. The event was a collaborative effort between Parks, Recreation, Youth, and Community Service, the Mayor's Office, Bristol Police Department, Board of Education, and Bristol's very own Diversity Council. I'd like to congratulate Council's new Chair, Alicia Washington, and Vice Chair, Erica Pearson, who are taking the place of Jeff Israel and Sandy Badonsky, both who are currently still involved with the council. The importance of the evening was to address the uncomfortable conversation and have the city leaders and stakeholders have an opportunity to listen to each and every one of you. We even had voices of many youth that were utilizing the parks that day. Maybe it was the free pizza we had to bribe them with. But anyway, they all had good questions, and they were very involved with some of the police, the recruits from the academy that were attending as well. A special thank you to the planning team, including Janelle Howard, Kiana Anderson, and Laura Bent. And again, thank you for all your commitment to ensure these conversations continue.
Thank you. Councilman Proleski, announcements?
None, thank you.
Councilman Barney?
No thanks.
Councilman Fortier?
None from me, thank you.
Moving on to the consent calendar, item 5, we have items A through H. Are there any items to be removed from the consent calendar for further discussion? And I will ask someone to make the motion to remove item D, the establishment of the Northeast Middle School Building Committee. I believe we have Dr. Carbone joining us and Jill Brown, and if there are any questions, I do want to tee this up so that we know what's coming in the next few months. Could someone make that motion?
Move to exclude item D.
Okay, so we're going to move item D off of the consent calendar.
Your Honor, can we move item 5H from the consent calendar?
5H is now removed from the consent calendar as well. So before dealing with those items, I'll ask for a motion to approve items 5A, B, C, E, F, G.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5D is to establish the Northeast Middle School Building Committee. So just as a refresher, we will send a member from the City Council, the Board of Finance will send a member, the Board of Education will nominate a member. Those three initial members will comprise the nominating committee and then populate the rest of the committee based on what the school building ordinance reads in terms of representation. But because this is coming up quickly, I thought it would be appropriate to invite Dr. Carbone and Mrs. Brown, who's here, to just maybe give us a 30-second overview about what's coming and what we're going to see at a future meeting in terms of a presentation. Go ahead, Dr. Carbone. You're muted.
Good evening. Thank you. We do have a short presentation if you want us to do a quick overview of how we have arrived at the request for a building committee. And if that is, we can walk you through the steps of how we've gotten to this phase. We have been engaged since 2019 with Reimagining Bristol Public Schools 2023. Next slide, Jill. The goals of reimagining, there were 4 goals that we embarked on. One was to look at the feasibility study done in 2019, update that study to look at the renovation and updating any of our older and out-of-date schools, and we have 4 out-of-date schools in particular, to look at how our student enrollment patterns have moved over the past 13 years since the district was redistricted when the 2 K-8 schools were opened, and to redistrict in order to create parity in class size and demographics. To examine our grade configuration and our school models to ensure that we have consistency in both of those and in our instructional models across students' age or plane of development, and also to increase access to full-day pre-K programming. Through the course of 2019, 2020, and up until a few months ago, the Board of Education has examined and looked at many models. We bring to you this evening the model of which the board has unanimously voted on. The way we have gotten to this point, we looked at our current enrollment patterns and our feasibility updated studies. We received feedback from our community through a variety of sources, one in particular through thought exchange from our parents at each of the grade levels. We use the services of Mylone and McBroom to look at not only our redistricting pattern, but our class enrollment, our school enrollment over the next 10 years. We engaged in a few different models across the past 18 months with different grade configurations and also different buildings coming online or offline or being repurposed. We received feedback from our board, and this evening the model that was the selected model is what we're referring to in the Northeast rebuild. And we have next steps. One next step, obviously, is to request that you create the building committee for Northeast, a new, larger Northeast, and that we will share the entire vision for reimagining Bristol Public Schools at a future meeting. What we are proposing right now and what was adopted at a recent Board of Education meeting is that the school district will engage in 2 phases. In phase 1, Edgewood Elementary School will become a standalone pre-K center, and our existing elementary schools will be redistricted during that time to absorb the students at Edgewood into the current 5 elementary schools and the elementary school grades at Green Hills and West Bristol. We would then begin a building project at Northeast Middle School, which will be a new, larger middle school so that we can transition the whole district to a pre-K standalone K-5, 6-8 model, with Northeast Middle School being a 800 scholar to complement Chippenshill, and Memorial Boulevard being a middle school, high school in the Magnet Arts program. In phase 2, the district will be redistricted to account for the larger Northeast Middle School, as well as balancing out absorbing the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students that would exit West Bristol and Green Hills as we phase those 2 schools into K-5. With this model, the pre-K standalone will better serve the students enrolled in our pre-K. It will also bring our BEC students into traditional school and classrooms, and it will offer a revenue-producing opportunity because we will have our students, our pre-K students, all in a pre-K academy. And lastly, the common grade configuration will allow us to use our fees in a more efficient manner, as well as offer more equitable learning opportunities and classroom spaces across all of the district. With that being said, phase 1, the new construction of Northeast. In the meantime, Northeast would remain online as a smaller middle school, and potential location of the building would be adjacent to the current building, similar to the way we onboarded Green Hills when we built Green Hills next to the former Green Hills School. This school will be a larger middle school than what we currently have. Right now, our enrollment for that Northeast Middle School is 432. This is projected to have 800 students that would accommodate the loss of the middle grades at West Bristol and Green Hills, respectively. And then lastly, I think there's one more slide. The Edgewood Elementary School, the repurposing of that school to renovate it to be a more modern pre-K center that will support 300 to 340 pre-K students, and maximizing the addition 40 seats for pre-K would allow access to for families into our pre-K program that do not have access to the program right now because we have limited enrollment. Altogether, the repurposing of Edgewood, the new Northeast, and minor renovations at West Bristol and Green Hills, we have an estimated project cost and also the cost to the city. with hearing from our constituents. We know that we have not addressed many of the needs at Northeast over the past couple of years, and a new Northeast facility will support that side of town. Any questions?
Does anybody here have any questions for Dr. Carbone? Okay. I think that's a great bird's eye view of where we're headed with this. I think we should definitely slate this for a more detailed presentation with some of those costs outlined, probably for a future Board of Finance meeting, as well as another joint meeting in the near future, so that we can adhere to the schedule that you're hoping to have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So going back to our motion for 5D, we have a motion to establish the Northeast Middle School Building Committee. Did we make that motion, Therese?
So moved.
No. Okay, and now I need a second.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar item 5H. Councilman Perleski, you've asked to have that removed.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. The 5H asks us to endorse the use of a project labor agreement for the proposed construction renovation of this building, and I'd like to just open it up for discussion rather than have it as part of our consent calendar.
Sure.
I am not a construction expert by any means, but in my 6 years on the council, I've served on 3 different building committees, and most recently, the existing building committee at the Memorial Boulevard School. And in my role on those committees, I've oftentimes asked questions and did some research, and the issue of a project labor agreement has come up several times, most recently with the Memorial Boulevard School. I have always been under the impression, right or wrong, that a PLA adds to costs of a project. Secondly, I think it limits or ties the hands somewhat, to some degree, of our construction manager and limits the use of certain subs if they're not a union shop. By not having a PLA, I think it still opens up all of the RFPs for a union shop to bid anyway. So we're not saying no to anyone. We're just saying that it's not exclusively to be bid by a union shop. And lastly, a lot of the subcontractors who work in our area and have paid taxes to our town are non-union shops. So I think by excluding these folks, we're excluding potential opportunities for local business. And that's what I wanted to bring up to our fellow councilors for consideration. Thank you.
So I can just answer that briefly by saying that there has been a debate about the efficacy of project labor agreements for years here in Bristol. In fact, I remember when the 2 middle schools were being proposed, that one idea back then was to do one with a project labor agreement and one without, because they were going to be so similar, and to actually have that experiment play out in Bristol as to whether there were benefits or not. We did attempt to have this conversation about the Memorial Boulevard Interdistrict Arts Magnet School, and the committee didn't choose to entertain the concept back then. But in doing my research, I called several colleagues who had done PLAs with projects within their communities. And the one conversation that stands out the most is I called Mayor Boughton, who is was at the time a 20-year mayor of Danbury, Republican. And he told me I would never do a project without a PLA.
Really?
Who do you need me to call in your town to talk to them about how efficient it is, how it grounds jobs within the community? Because yes, we do have companies that don't have union shops, but we also have a multitude of employees who actually belong to those union shops who will be pulled in for those jobs. So that was very telling, I thought, 2 or 3 years ago during that conversation. I also want to bring to the attention of everyone that we are contemplating, waiting for guidance, obviously, but there is an opportunity that because of air quality, heating and cooling, and all of the issues associated with that have come forward because of the pandemic, that we believe that a portion of that corrective work, which is our main problem here in this building, our heating and cooling systems are very old, they're antiquated, they have not been properly maintained. There are constant breakage, there's asbestos and other contaminants, and in the past few years, we've had some lead issues in the air as well. All of that might be eligible for American Rescue Plan dollars that could be segregated for that aspect of the project. And if you read the interim rule that came out early, that has since been revised and we're waiting on for final conclusion, there's a whole section in there, and I didn't bring it with me, but there's an entire section in there that says if you're going to be using American Rescue Plan dollars for projects, that they highly recommend the use of project labor agreements on large-scale projects. So I'm looking to make sure that we're in compliance, and I think that this is a project that is worthy of it because there's so much of the mechanical pieces that have to be done, and that's where the project labor agreements will be beneficial. We know that we have people to do the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, and I wish I could speak to it, but I wasn't involved in the negotiations because this agreement is actually between D'Amato Downs and the Greater Hartford Building Trades Council. But I believe that there are assurances built into the agreement that they signed if, in fact, there are not adequate supply of labor within certain categories. So, for example, site work or acoustical tiles or something like that, that becomes a specialty issue. If there isn't one, I believe there's language that addresses that. I don't remember specifically, but all of these points have been talked about, and I am familiar with some of that. So I can get that for you so that you can see it. But I think I'm comfortable at this point moving forward with a PLA.
You know, Mayor, I want to make it clear that I've talked to some of our fellow council members, and I'm not going to vote for this or endorse it. However, I want to make it clear that I am not taking a position that's anti-union.
Right.
I'm just taking a position that I think is more, from my knowledge base, more responsible to taxpayers. That's really it. Thank you.
It's fine.
Excuse me, through the chair, do we absolutely have to vote on this tonight? Because what you're saying, Mayor, and what Councilman Proleski is saying, I was leaning a no, but I'm now leaning yes, but I don't think I'm qualified at this point to even vote on it intelligently. So do we have to?
Is there a timeline? Ray or anybody, do you think this will hold up any of the negotiations if we circulate more information to the council? Okay, so we can do that. I can circulate the document, and just to be clear, this is not something that we are executing. It is
No, I understand
an
that.
endorsement. And I felt it was important because the project labor agreement is a big step for this project, and I wanted it to be reflected on the agenda in some way so that people understand that this is happening in conjunction. But if everybody would feel more comfortable, I can get you the interim rule piece from the American Rescue Plan documents, and I can get you the executed agreement from the project. And then we can circulate that and vote on it at a future meeting. Okay. So at this point, Therese, would you prefer that we table, or do you want to just have it, no action taken?
Yeah, no action.
Okay.
The other thing, I mean, if you're going to do it, then you can postpone it to the next meeting if you want to do that.
Okay.
Or.
Does anybody have a preference as to whether we just take no action or do a postponement until September?
I'd make a motion to postpone it till September.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded to postpone until the September City Council meeting the concept of the project labor agreement endorsement that is happening between the construction manager and the Greater Hartford Building Trades Council. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the postponement?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to reports and committee reports. The first item is 6A, which is from the Ordinance Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a report from before I begin, I want to thank Councilwoman Fortier for running the meeting the other night for us. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is a recommendation for changes to Section 14-18, expands an existing city ordinance to include electric bikes, Corporation Council in parade routes. It's a Corporation Council has worked with our police department, and this is really good because, as you know, in September, the MUM Festival is going to have a parade, so I think the timing is good. I hereby move that Section 14-18 of the operations of bicycles along parade routes of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bristol, Connecticut is hereby amended as provided, and I further move that the city clerk publish said amendments and additions to the Code of Ordinances, and they become effective upon the expiration of 14 days from the date of their publication in a newspaper of general circulation in the City of Bristol.
Second.
And it expands the definition of bikes to include electric bikes.
The motion has been made and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, I'm just curious, has there been any talk as to how exactly that's going to be enforced?
I know there's been discussion between the Corporation Counsel and the Police Department. I think this actually helps the Police Department in identifying something other than a traditional bike. So I think has been covered.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B from the Ordinance Committee.
Thank you again. This is a request from the Ordinance Committee to set forth a public hearing on the changes to Sections 23-1 and 23-2 to include a new position of a park ambassador in terms of citation officer and enforcement. And the motion reads as follows. I hereby move that the time and place of September 7th, Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, at 5:20 p.m. in the first floor meeting room, City Hall, 111 North Main Street, Bristol, Connecticut, be set forth for the holding of a public hearing thereon by the Ordinance Committee, and that the city clerk publish notice of said public hearing and the proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinances as required by the city charter.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is the American Rescue Plan Task Force update. I think that our controller covered that very well in her report. I will just do a quick rundown. We did have on joint meeting the $10,000 that we have given to the Community Services Division for incidental and immediate response for residents who have one-time issues in order to stay housed, repairs, those types of things. We are also bundling that money with other available resources, including Unite CT, Main Street Community Foundation, and other opportunities. The second allocation, which has not yet hit the joint meeting, is $50,000 for COVID mitigation to the Bristol-Burlington Health District for their continued efforts for the pandemic. So that will be coming through the same process as the community services did, and it'll be on a future agenda. And then eventually, once we conclude the interview process and have selected a consultant to help us, those fees associated with that consultant and the work that they do over the next few years will come from the proceeds of the American Rescue Plan dollars as well, not from the general budget. So our next meeting is August 23rd. Okay, are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to a report from the Special Real Estate Committee meeting that happened before this meeting.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's a property at 801 Burlington Avenue that we had with a Realtor, and we received, I think, a total of 4 offers, 3 or 4 offers, and one was recommended to City Council. So I hereby move that the City of Bristol accept the offer from Tammy Van Lintner and/or her assigns in the amount of $42,500 for the city-owned property identified as Assessor's Map 59, Lot 8, Burlington Avenue, also formerly known as 801 Burlington Avenue. I further move that this matter be referred to Corporation Counsel to prepare and/or review any necessary documents. I further move that the mayor or acting mayor be authorized to execute any necessary documents to effectuate the same.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
This is a prime location. It's on the corner of Peacedale, Your Honor, and Burlington Avenue, and it's a, we wanted to make sure that we did ourselves well on this particular property because it is buildable and there's a lot of potential for the lot. So we were pleased with this offer.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any other committee reports to come before the City Council tonight? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to unfinished business. I was so happy a couple of months ago to not be giving COVID reports anymore, but we're back to it. In the last few weeks, there has been a noticeable increase in the number of Bristol residents, especially young children as young as infants and babies, who have tested positive for COVID-19. So we are back looking at contact tracing. We are looking at new cases with symptoms. We are tracking the Delta variant. And there have been some breakthrough cases of people having symptoms that and being tested positive who have been vaccinated, but the vast majority of people who are contracting COVID at this time are not only unvaccinated, but it's also the younger population. So obviously, we are looking to bulk up our vaccination program and also revamping our testing program as well so that more people have the opportunity to be tested. Last week, the Bristol-Burlington Health District hosted 2 separate clinics, one at Eastern and one at Central, aimed at the 12 to 17 youth group, and over 150 school-age kids did show up to get vaccinated, and there's more of those planned as well. Actually, the health district is offering a $25 gift card for anyone who does come and complete their vaccination. So as you get your first vaccination and you schedule your second one, when you get your second vaccination, you will receive that gift card. As of August 4th, we have 63% of the population that is vaccinated in Bristol, which is a great number. There is another 12% that is unable and ineligible for vaccinations because they're under the age of 12. So when you take that 12% to the 63%, that brings us to 75%, which means 25% of our population could be generally termed eligible to receive the vaccination and have not, although we do know that there's medical exemptions and other issues in there. So we are continuing to chip away at that percentage. We have a COVID vaccination clinic tonight at the summer concert that's happening as we sit here. They're offering all 3 vaccinations, and I believe, Councilman Barney, is there one at the library coming up?
Yes, there's one at the library on August 25th. Sorry, my microphone's not on. August 25th, there's a mobile vaccine clinic from Hartford Healthcare. I had it from my library report that they were going to be there on the 25th from 4 to 7 with Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, and then a second clinic on September 15th.
Okay. So we're seeing, too, that people between the ages of 20 and 59 are being hospitalized more than they have been, and that the hospitalization rate for people over the age of 80 has not increased. So that's good news. We also, in the mayor's office, and we're going to be releasing this tomorrow, and hopefully the media will pick up on it as well, there are about 10 places here in Bristol where you could either get a vaccine or be tested. They include private entities like the Physician One Urgent Care on Farmington Avenue, our health district, both Stop and Shops, both CVS's, Hartford Healthcare on Farmington Avenue, Quest Diagnostics, Walgreens on Main Street, the Bristol Health Clinic at the hospital, as well as Price Chopper. There are also special event vaccination clinics. We're doing one in Brackett Park tomorrow from 8 to 11. We are doing some at Congregate Housing. Tunxus Community College has one this week. Lake Compounds has them every Saturday. Sam's Food Club has them in New Britain. We also partner with the Burlington Town Hall because we're part of that health district. They're doing some next week. And then there are additional clinics at both Bristol Central and Bristol Eastern the week before school starts. So anybody who is looking to be vaccinated can definitely find the opportunity to do so. We will be posting this on our mayor's office page, and we'll be making it available to all of the council members, departments, and sharing it with the media tomorrow as well. Moving on to new business, I have one item that I'd like to bring forward, and that is the authorization for the mayor or acting mayor to seek a grant from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments to fund the environmental assessments of 300 Broad Street, to sign all of the paperwork and refer to the Board of Finance. So for those of you who may not know, or for our viewing audience, 300 Broad Street represents the eastern side of what was formerly known as the Tice complex. The tower, the steel tower, is on the western side, and that is 370 Broad Street. So 300 Broad Street is the one with the older factory buildings that we are working with an owner from New York in order to help them with their due diligence, because we would really like to see this property reclaimed. So we are looking to the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments to help fund that environmental remediation part. So I'd like to ask for a motion to do that authorization.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Your Honor, do you want to talk about what's going on over there, or do you want us to talk about something that,
Sure,
I can do it if you want.
you're on the Economic and Community Development Commission, so sure.
Can I just dovetail on what you just talked
Sure.
about a little bit? Some good things are happening down at the old Tice property on Broad Street in Forestville. Our economic development staff for years has been working with the property owners because on a number of issues, but to reinvigorate that property and reconstitute it. And we're very happy to say that after a great effort by Mr. Malley and his staff and the mayor and the tower, there are two parcels that consist of that property, and the tower piece was recently sold to a well-known, successful Midwestern steel company who has significant plans for Bristol that's going to bring significant jobs to Bristol. So we're really happy about that. And what I'm particularly happy about, because you know I'm a penny pincher, is that in the process, we collected over $400,000 in back taxes, and we recouped $20,000, I think, or so of expenses and other. Income and expense. Right. Thank you.
Reports, yeah.
So I think that's significant, and I think that further that Justin is working with someone on the other piece. You'll hear more about that in the next couple of months, so stay tuned. This is a great news for taxes. This is a great news for jobs for Bristol. Thank you.
So the property transfer was in the paper on Saturday for the 340 Still Tower building. So if you go by, you'll notice that they are already cleaning up a little bit in that parcel. So what Justin and I worked on for the last couple of months is actually helping all of these various parties, including the seller and the buyer, as well as the entity that's doing due diligence, to split the property. So there were some sightline revisions that needed to be done, and so that sale was completed last month, and we're hoping that the due diligence phase for the second project goes well, and we'll see that sale go forward as probably in the next 2 to 3 months. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Well, we have economic development update is listed on our agenda. And, you know, I think the Economic and Community Development Committee has just been incredibly busy with all the downtown projects and other projects like the Tice project. I'm particularly excited about the fact that Wheeler Clinic is going to be coming downtown. It didn't make it to our agenda this month because the contract isn't finalized, but Wheeler has been a part of our community for many, many years. People have relied on them for health services, particularly mental health services, which I think, again, not to keep bringing up the pandemic, but, you know, the pandemic has showed us that there's things we've always needed, but we needed them even more during the pandemic. And I know that the need for mental health services is very great in Bristol, and I think Wheeler's a name that we all can rely on, like we know them, and even though they've been in Plainville, they've had a presence downtown, and the fact that they're planning to bring their offices, they're going to combine their offices in many cases here into one building in our downtown center, I think is, you know, a big plus for Bristol.
Yeah, it is. So that motion last Thursday at Economic Community Development was we settled on a sale price for Parcel 3. And again, for our viewing audience, Parcel 3 is the middle section of the southern side of Hope Street, kind of opposite Better Half Brewery. It's the middle parcel, and it's a little more than an acre. And we're selling that acreage for $600,000, which is really kind of indicative of how value in downtown is increasing. So that purchase and sales agreement is in the hands of our legal team, and hopefully we will see that sometime soon. But that is a good addition for downtown. Anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I actually have a question. So I know that we had a special meeting to approve a bid for the Dodge Village auction. Do you have any information about how that went?
So the Riverside Avenue parcel, so our team did attend the auction. There were supposed to be 2 auctions in town that day. They were going to auction off the Foodies building too, but they postponed that auction. The one on Riverside Avenue was unsuccessful for us. We were going really to protect the city's interest. We did not want someone to be purchasing that property, which is extremely blighted but also contaminated, without having an end use that was going to complement what we're trying to do on Riverside Avenue. So the bid that we were prepared to make, thanks to a quick appropriation of funds from the Economic Development Fund, was we could go up to a certain amount, and it never got close. The owner chose to take a protective bid at the minimum reserve amount and would not allow anyone to bid below that, and the building is not anywhere near worth what they believe it's worth. So unfortunately, we did not put a bid in. Nobody put a bid in, actually, and we're going to continue to work with the owners on a potential reuse that will clean up that property. And I think this is illustrative of the difficulties that we have when we're working with private entities, because they really don't have to comply, other than with some basic property maintenance and ordinance demands. But those owners seem motivated to work with us and find an end use, which is good. And a like property, also in the 3rd Council District, Chick Miller, which is right on the line of the 3rd and the 2nd Council Districts, is another long-standing blighted property that we are currently working with the owner. And that is one where we actually successfully got an environmental grant from Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments to help him assess exactly what the contamination is, and then obviously what the amount would be to clean it up and hopefully demolish it. And that number was way more than anybody thought it was. So that plan is currently being put together as well.
Well, you'll have to let me know before they tear it down, because that was where my first job was, day after I turned 16 at Chick Miller's Chevrolet. So I'd like to go take another tour.
I don't think you want to take a tour.
I'm still curious. I painted the windows there for Christmas, so I have a lot of memories there. But that's good to know, because, I know that I've been following their agendas. Thankfully, the Economic Development Director keeps us really in the loop with what's happening through sending these agendas. And I did peek at this streetscape study that was done to complement the work that's being done on the Sessions Building, and it extends the study to like Divinity Street and Park Street, kind of looking at that 72 corridor. And the ideas that they have are phenomenal. It's a long time kind of neglected area, I feel like, that has some real potentiality for beautification, especially the fact that we have this natural resource in the river running through there. It would really be nice to see that opened up more. And obviously Dodge Village would be ideal to kind of create that easy access for constituents to enjoy that area. So hopefully we'll see more positive things continuing to happen with Riverside Avenue.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. I feel like I'm on the hot seat here. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to ask? Or
I do, Your Honor. At the risk of jumping ahead, I see it's agenda number 15, but it's a pretty big deal. So I was on the Zoom call partially. Was it earlier this week?
Thursday.
Okay, yeah, I guess you busy, so you lose sight. But the assisted living and the memory care facility that's going to be going on the north side of town on North Street and North Main. Sounds like on many different levels it's going to be a great addition because of the unique roommate floor planning that they do. That parcel is going to be able to be utilized because it's going to be 5 stories, 60,000 square feet, am I right?
Yes.
And that entity that is out of Fairfield that is the brand is Kind Care. I want to keep saying Kinder Care, but that's a different age group. 117 beds because of the roommate situation, and it's my understanding that that means the expense is going to be 30% less because of that. And I just think that the high-end amenities, they spoke of a bistro in there, a restaurant, walking gardens, and so this is going to be more designed for middle-class folks, which is good, because it's going to be very high-end care. And another factor that was touched on was 75 jobs. And with the Bristol Public Schools encouraging health care for many of their students, Tungus Community College, and adult ed, that should work very well. So now, has that piece been vacant? I've heard, I think it's 20 years since it's been on the tax rolls. Is that accurate?
It's very close to 20. I would have
Right.
to look it up specifically, but there was actually at least 16 because the demolition delay ordinance went into effect in like 2005, and that building was, that demolition delay ordinance was used to try to stop the demolition of that building. So 16 years at least.
Right. And it's my understanding that shovels are going to be in the ground in September. There's activity there now, but that has to do with the state and the work they're doing over there right now. At least it's my understanding, because that it's premature for them to be doing anything.
So we talked about this at site plan today. So there's an interesting story about that. That yes, they're ready to go. I believe that the site plans are out to all of our departments to review. They're through the land use process. So now all the departments are looking at it: fire protection, building, zoning, health. But what we did to work with Kind Care is the Public Works engineering staff and the water department were very proactive, knowing that this paving project was coming through, but also knowing about the utility needs for a project that size. So that group, the site plan group, specifically engineering and water department, have been working with Kind Care over the last couple of weeks to ensure that all their connections are going to be done ahead of construction and before that paving project happens on Route 6, because the last thing any of us need is a large-scale project like Kind Care coming through and literally taking up a newly paved road in order to connect into Route 6. So between the encroachment permits, the fact that it's a state road, the fact that everybody knows this project's coming, and all the utilities from the city side, we were able to help Kind Care get that done ahead of time. And Eversource started that work on Sunday, I think, of connecting down from West Street to the corner. So that's some of the work that you're seeing now. But we probably should discuss the Route 6 piece too, because that's going to be paved from Sherman Street all the way to
Collins Road.
Collins. You want to cover Route 6? Do you have that notice?
Well, I wasn't done. I had one more question. I'm sorry about the north side as well, is the fact that it's my understanding with JR moving Parkside down to the old Foodies, the old Supernatural, that is going to be a plus, because parking, the fact that he's going to add to the vitality of downtown, not that he's that far now, but just bigger kitchen, bigger capacity for patrons. I just think that is all going to work pretty well. I mean, am I premature in talking about that?
I think that's probably one of the worst-kept secrets locally, but I'm not
Well,
sure that
that's
it
what I
was
figured.
entirely
That's-
public yet, but.
Yeah, well, I saw the look you gave me, so I thought, uh-oh. But I think it's, although he's moving, a few blocks, I think the location and the physical plant is perfect, and it's going to benefit everyone downtown.
Agreed. So, you want to just,
Yeah, I'll touch on the pavement
Pavement
project.
project,
Route 6 obviously is our hub for many stores for our residents to travel. So just so you guys are aware, August 24th through September 3rd, they're going to start paving from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. And that'll they're going to start on the west end, which is Sherman Street, all the way down to Collins Road. So again, it's just opening it up Route 6 a little bit better, and Greg will give you a little
Yeah.
update, because it is our district with a lot of new stores and things.
Yeah,
opening.
everybody talks about downtown and all the changes that we're having on downtown, but there are other areas of Bristol that we're also paying attention to. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Route 6, thankfully, before the paving goes. But anyways, we're looking at places like Ruby Tuesdays. I used to go to Ruby Tuesdays a lot. It was really sad to see it close, but we have another, a national company looking at Ruby Tuesdays, and actually lots around there. So we have that going on. We have, let's see, down at Big Lots, I think there's a Florida, the Florida developer down, looking at a space down there, Big Lots, is that right, Your Honor?
The Florida developer is looking at the Mahana property, the farmland, which is
Right.
east of Big Lots. Yes, you're correct.
Okay, now, also, we got Aroma Joe's
Yeah.
coming down to the Big Lots Plaza. It's going to be right next to Wendy's. And if you go down to, for instance, the Plaza area, we all know that the Burlington Coat Factory is opening up in the fall, so that's a great news. But we also have Cost Cutters and America's Best Contacts coming in there. I think the Bristol Hospital blood draw is moving across the street to Firehouse Subs, is that right?
Yep.
I want to make sure I get this right. You're going to have to keep me honest.
It did. It moved across to the former Pier 1 Plaza.
Oh, really? Okay. So that's going on. We also have Modern Dentistry filling a vacancy at the corner of Route 6 and Morris Avenue. I guess Dr. Katkowski moved his business over to Pine Street. The Torrington Savings Bank is close to opening. Let's see, and then also, what's that?
2 branches, I think.
Yeah, 2 branches. Really?
Where?
That's what I thought I read there were 2. Oh, there's only one?
One, Route 6.
Retract that last statement.
There's also another national retailer that's looking at parcels next to Kentucky Fried Chicken. So there's a lot of activity. Oh, and I can't forget Wings Over Bristol, right? Wings Over Bristol is expanding, and so they're moving to down the street to a larger spot. So there's a lot of work going on Route 6 as well as downtown.
I'm excited to see that the interest of Bristol, just to be part of it with businesses, is at an all-time high. Greg, are you telling me that there's some businesses that are relocating their offices to Bristol?
Yeah, quite a few, actually.
We must be doing something right. Thank you.
Your Honor, can I add something I'm really excited about? Since
Wait,
everybody-
first I need to know which attorney in the pool had 815, because you just lost your money. I don't think we're done yet.
Can I bring something up
Sure.
that I'm really, really, really excited about? And I got to give a credit to our Public Works Director, Ray Rogozinski, who was all over this. I just saw the email that Ray sent around about the update from the Connecticut DOT on the West End Improvement Project. And the dates have been pushed off a couple of different months, but construction, I believe, is going to begin in mid-2022. And
I thought it was August.
August 2020, construction date.
August of 2022,
Okay,
yeah.
right, and this is a fully funded state project, so it's going, and that's going to make a huge difference to our West End, and that's part of Peter and my district, and I can tell you, I'm very excited about it, and the people down there are very excited about it.
So just as a point of clarification, night construction is something that we pushed for on both of these projects because we want to ensure that there's as little impact as possible. So the Route 6 repaving project as well as the, hopefully the 69 at Route 72 intersection will be night as well. So, okay, so we did cover a lot of projects here under economic and development update.
Your Honor,
and
I
we-
don't think we voted on B, though.
Right, so now we need to vote on the actual authorization, going back to our original discussion on 300 Broad Street, so that I may sign the paperwork and refer it to the Board of Finance for the environmental assessment of 300 Broad.
I think we made the motion and seconded, so,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm scared to ask if there's any other new business.
A lot's been happening, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Any new business starting on my far left?
No.
I just want to at least clear up. I did have an emotional moment earlier. I apologize. I don't want to make the public feel like they can't come and talk to us. Obviously, that's an important topic to the people that came here today. But I do feel obligated to speak to the people in my district that are LGBTQ that would feel isolated by that discussion and that request to us. And I wanted to just make it abundantly clear that that would not be something I would ever vote on. So I apologize if this isn't the appropriate time to discuss it. I did want to address it, though. I don't ever want to make the public feel like they can't come here and say their piece, whether or not I agree with it. But I did feel obligated to speak for the people in my district that are LGBTQ, or family members of LGBTQ, that are not here to say their piece as well. So thank you.
New business?
None.
No.
New business?
None.
Nothing.
Okay. Moving on to item 9, which is resignations.
And there are 2 resignations, Your Honor. The first is from Joseph Kaleda Jr. from the Planning Commission, and the second is from Nicholas Jones from the Board of Finance.
Okay. So motion to send letters of thanks for their service to both gentlemen.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's only a few appointments for tonight. Moving on to agenda item 10. The first is the Building Code Board of Appeals to reappoint John Lodovico Jr. to a 5-year term to August of 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then the next appointment, which does not require council approval, is a Bristol Housing Authority appointment, which is mayor's choice. It is to appoint B.B. Hafford to replace Jeffrey Hawks, who resigned due to an unexpected relocation out of town, unexpired term to 12/31/25.
So moved. Or is it a mayor's appointment?
It's a mayor's
I'm sorry.
appointment.
That's okay.
The next one is to appoint the alternate to the Inland Wetlands Commission, currently serving Daniel Massaro, to replace Tammy Kelly, who asked to not be reappointed, for a 3-year term to May of 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So from the top, here's who we're looking for. We are looking for someone to serve on the Freedom of Information Advisory Board. There is 1 vacancy there. We will be looking for someone to go on to the Board of Finance. And we are looking for someone to go on the Planning Commission. We have 2 appointments that are queued up for September. We are anticipating a vacancy on the Cemetery Commission due to illness, and I already have someone who has expressed interest there. And I have someone to fill the vacancy on the Bristol Historic District Commission, but they cannot start until September as well. So that leaves, again, Freedom of Information, Board of Finance, Planning Commission as current vacancies within the city of Bristol. And anyone who's interested in getting more information or potentially serving can contact my office.
And I'm sorry, Your Honor, is planning regular or alternate, do you know?
He is an alternate.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 11, the approval of contract 2P21-082, the move management services for the coordination of furniture, fixtures, and equipment, known as FF&E, activities at the Memorial Boulevard Intra-District Arts Magnet School to Move Plan Group USA for $44,650.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 12 is a resolution which will require a roll call vote if somebody could ready the motion. It is the resolution regarding the acceptance of funding for School Readiness Priority Grant and School Readiness Priority Quality Enhancement Grant from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, and to refer to the Board of Finance.
I have that, Your Honor. Be it hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Bristol, Connecticut, that the Mayor, Ellen Zaposasu, or acting mayor, is hereby authorized to accept the funding for the Schools Readiness Priority Grant 017-002-11000, 16274-2022, 83014, 17002 for $2,912,289.13. Award period from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. And the School Readiness Priority Quality Enhancement Grant 017-002-11000, 16158-2022, 82079-170018 for $18,756. Award period July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, I'll start with a roll call vote on my far right.
Yes.
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 Chair votes yes. The resolution is adopted. Moving on to Agenda Item 13, authorization for the mayor or the acting mayor to sign documents associated with the award of the Urban Act funds for the Center Square Infrastructure Project and refer to the Board of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14 is the approval of the questions on the November 2nd, 2021 ballot as prepared by the City Council and authorization for the town clerk to prepare the explanatory text with approval from the Corporation Council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions? I am actually more interested in the explanatory text than I am in the actual questions.
Yeah, agreed. So, Your Honor, I'm sorry. I think we've seen that sometimes these questions can be confusing, so we're going to have the explanatory questions. Is there any other, ways that we can communicate with the public about these ballot questions in a way that's, a little more multimedia? I don't know, is it appropriate to have videos or things like that?
I think we can entertain as many ideas as we think will reach
Okay.
people,
All right.
including bringing them to existing commission meetings and public places and social media.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions or concerns, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 15 is the approval of the real property tax abatement agreement for 483 Bristol LLC, contingent upon initiation of construction of an approximately 60,000 square foot assisted living and memory care facility at 483 North Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I just would say that if people were curious about this building and the description that Councilman Kelly offered earlier, the economic development agenda contained really interesting renderings of the facility. So if you wanted to kind of visualize what's going on down there, it's pretty interesting.
Thank you. And actually, behind us is some renderings of the sessions as well.
Which I'm very excited about.
Here's the picture, Brittany.
Oh, see, came prepared.
You get that?
Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business proper to come before? Yes, Attorney Clift?
How often do I get to say this? There are no executive sessions tonight. I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Yay. Okay. Seeing no executive sessions or any other business proper to come before our meeting, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.